Good afternoon, one and all. Franchiseindia team welcomes you to the 15th edition of Business Opportunity Bachai webinar, a platform through which we try to give you experience and understanding about the brands which are creating impact in market. With this introduction, we welcome Chairman Franchiseindia Gaurav sir and our MD Sonia ma'am for this particular session. We also welcome our brand of the day, VIVO Healthcare. It's India's number one brand in healthcare education and training. They are known for their established franchisee model, and they have a strong presence in 13 states in 22 cities. With this introduction, I welcome Shakti Singh, who is the MD and co-founder, and Vikas Kohli, who is the Chief Marketing Officer, to take us through the journey of VIVO Healthcare. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Maria, and thank you to Franchiseindia for having us on your platform here today. And I'd like to start by giving you a small introduction. VIVO Healthcare has been around for 11 years now. We are in our 12th year of operation. And we started our journey through as an emergency response provider. In that journey, we found that like setting up ambulances and emergency response was the easy part, but there were no people in India as a workforce where of paramedics that we could deploy for our emergency response. And as a result of that, we set up VIVO Healthcare's education and training business that we have today. And we also found that not only were there no paramedics, but there was no brand, there was no standardization, there was no quality of any education or training for this breed of people, which are very important for the healthcare sector. As you know, the healthcare sector is today become even more important given what we are going through with the COVID-19. And I think VIVO Healthcare has played a pioneering role in setting up a platform for education and training of paramedics, allied healthcare workers, all the people who work in the healthcare workforce, not necessarily the doctors and nurses, but all the other support infrastructure that goes into this. I think going forward, healthcare infrastructure is building healthcare infrastructure is going to be the need of the hour. The government is pushing from at a district level to have build up this capacity, and I think VIVO Healthcare has a lot of work and opportunity ahead in the time to come. So I think with this brief introduction, I will pass it on to my colleague Vikas Kohli to go through our sort of presentation and explain the company in a bit more detail and the opportunity that we would like to share with all of you today, and in terms of how we can grow and grow our network in the time to come to serve India better, for to grow paramedics, to develop more paramedics, and develop the health infrastructure of the country.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Singh. It's a pleasure to be on the platform here today. In fact, healthcare, in the last 3 months, all that we've been listening to on the radio, on TV is healthcare. And it's changing very quickly, and it's exciting times for, I think, anybody who's in healthcare. So what we've been doing, in fact, it reinforces that we were on the right path. The building blocks that we had built for the last 10 years, there is a huge opportunity for us to take that forward. So till now, what we've been focusing on and our thought process was, look, there's no training center. There's no place one can go and say, I want to learn something about healthcare, other than either going to a conventional nursing institute. But what has been changing in healthcare is as more and more technology is coming into the hospital, so more complicated, sophisticated equipments are coming into the hospital. So there's a need for skilled, trained staff to be able to use these equipment, to be able to provide service and the appropriate inputs to the doctors. So for example, let's say 20 years ago, there were no MRI machines, there were no dialysis machines. So as equipment and the need and the technology that is getting enhanced, so there's a huge need for trained technicians in the healthcare space. So that is what we were focused on. We started training paramedics. They are called allied health workers, if you were to look at it, in the US. So, and there are many verticals within allied health space. So we've trained about 15,000, participants till now across our various centers across Pan India. If you can have the next slide, please. So you can see, so vocational education, we are only focused on in the healthcare space. So what we are doing is activities at two levels. So one is training students. So these students can do up from 2 months to 1 year programs and become employable. And the other activity that we are doing is we are working with corporates, working with hospitals to upskill existing workers who are already in the healthcare space, or even some people in the community. So we have awareness programs as well as preparedness programs. What I mean by them is, for example, in an office environment, if somebody collapses, so what is your emergency response mechanism? So you need a trained pool of people to even identify what is the crisis, how do I even take the person to hospital, how do I call the ambulance. So these are programs, are awareness programs, so from 1 day to 5 day programs. And on the other hand, when the ambulance responds, so you need a trained person in the ambulance. So these are the paramedic programs which we are doing, so that the chain of survival till you reach the hospital, everybody is trained, hence lives are saved. So that has been our focus. So we are an NSDC trained skilling partner. We also work under Skill India. We are also an international training center for American Heart Association and American Safety and Health Institute, so that the best quality programs can be offered in India. Next slide, please. Also, initially, I think we were the only organization that focused on building a brand. You must have seen our advertisements across, a lot of media. And the objective was the brand, if the brand is built, it gives preference even for students to come and, do courses at VIVO Healthcare, as well as when the students go for placement, a VIVO student is preferred over any other organization. So we've built a brand over a long period of time, and now the brand is established and there's an opportunity for us to take it to the next level. Next slide, please. Now, these are the various courses we are doing. 15 different courses that we have on offer. Now, these courses, like I told you, are from 2 months to 1 year. Now, the idea is so that these courses, help the community and a cross-section of the community. So there are certain courses, for example, somebody who's just 10th pass, so they have an opportunity to come in and, do work in the healthcare sector. Then for the 12th pass, now these are minimum qualifications. And then there are some programs which you need science, because in healthcare, these are technical skills. So a science background is important. Now, having said this, these are minimum criteria. We have a lot of graduates who are also coming in and joining these programs because it gives them employability quickly. Also, there's an opportunity for people who are already in healthcare and are working in hospitals, nursing homes, etc., to come and upskill themselves, because as we understand, 40 to 50% of the population which is working in hospitals are not certified or qualified at this stage. Next slide, please. So currently our footprint is pan-India. So while we have a cluster in the north around NCR region, we have a cluster in Maharashtra. Pune is also very important, and a lot of students are doing these programs. Then around Kolkata area, the cluster. So as we've evolved, so we started with our centers in NCR, and then we've moved around the country. So we've got a feel for, what are the requirements pan-India, and now the opportunity is to take them even deeper into all these territories. In the last few years, we've gained a lot of experience of how things work across, various states and various cities. there are cultural differences, social issues, etc. So now there's an opportunity to take them deeper into including the interiors, as Mr. Singh also mentioned that the government is also focusing on taking healthcare down to the district level. Next slide, please. So having said this, we see it as a huge opportunity. We think healthcare, I mean, was always growing. It is a recession-proof industry. But thanks to COVID, I think, it is changed the speed at which it is going to evolve substantially. So if you were to look at it and look at the figures, some of the figures that are being shared by all the leading, consulting companies and organizations. So he's saying if the market size in 2020 to 2022, which is only 2 years, it's expected to grow by 33%. So what we are saying is if healthcare is going to grow intrinsically, the supply chain behind it. So you definitely need more people, more trained people with the right kind of skills to be able to service this growth. Now, which means that both the current workers need to be upskilled. So for example, everyone's talking about, there should be ventilator in a hospital. Now, if there are ventilators going to be deployed, you need people who are trained to be able to use and deploy those ventilators and to be able to support the doctors in operating those ventilators. So again, it creates a huge demand, not only for ventilators, but across the board. So another thing is testing is becoming important. So how do you test? So how will you test so many people? There need to be trained people who know how to do the test and everything else around it, testing, reporting, etc. So we are seeing huge opportunities in this vertical growing. Another important good thing that's happening is even more technology is coming into healthcare. So telemedicine is becoming important. So which basically means like we are doing this webinar, there's a doctor sitting in one end and there are many, many, many nodes where the computers and the doctors and the patients can interact. But on every node, you need a medic who's going to be able to ask and translate what the doctor is asking to the patient in the local language. Now the doctor needs to know blood pressure kitna hai mata ji ka, kahan darad ho rahi hai. So each node has a requirement for again somebody who's not only a medic but also knows a little bit about computers and how to use the technology. So again, it's an opportunity. So we are very excited about this space now, and with COVID, it's only going to enhance the need. The entire country, in fact, worldwide, everyone is focusing on how to fix healthcare. This was not, unfortunately, a priority for us as a country in the past, but with the focus coming in, I think there's a huge opportunity for people to get into this space. Another thing is we are saying we need almost 2 crore people to get into the healthcare space. Now, these are new people that are required as medics who will be, for example, now, if we walk into any corporate office, there's a person who's scanning you, checking your temperature. Right now, anybody and everybody is doing that, but soon these people will need to be specialized. Now, okay, everything's okay, but now if he's got fever, now what do I do next? So all the new protocols are going to come into play. So again, we will see a lot more deployment and hiring in the corporate world, clinics inside offices, or these medics being available. Now, the last we've been seeing on TV, even on every railway station, they are checking. So just by default, many, many more, medics will be required in this space. So we are very excited about this. We think there's going to be a substantial need. We've already started receiving calls for, people because everyone's looking for options for deployment. We are all, so we are just waiting for the lockdown to open to get started on this. But it is exciting times, I think, ahead, and we need to, increase our capacity substantially to be able to service this. Next, please. So what we are saying is that as far as we are concerned, VIVO Healthcare is concerned, the proof is already there. It is a concept which is proven, which has been around for many years. We are available in many cities. 15,000 people have already been trained, have gotten their education, have graduated, are working in various capacities in the health sector. So this is so it's a proven concept. The model is in place. Now the key discussion is how do we kind of scale this up, and this is where it gets more exciting because the need. So earlier, our focus has been, if you see our footprint, is mostly in the larger cities, but it's again not in every large city. Now every city needs multiple such centers as demand is increasing, and the moment you go into tier 2, tier 3 cities, which will happen if the focus is going to shift towards district level, and every state capital will again further do investments in more treatment, more healthcare. Also, it is much faster to train paramedics because in 2 years to, I'm sorry, 2 months to 1 year, you can have people who are productive and can be deployed. While in, if you were to look in as doctors, it takes 5 to 7 years for a doctor by the time they graduate. So we are saying there'll be much more deployment of paramedics because it's faster. And if they work closely with the doctors, it can offer much higher levels of productivity and more care for the patients on the ground. Next slide, please. So we are looking, so we decided, so how do we grow this? And this is where it gets exciting. So we've divided India into 5 zones. So if you see, so 4 zones were north, south, east, west. And actually the 5th zone is the cluster, which is New Delhi area. So we are saying there's an opportunity for us to look for like-minded people who are looking at a growth sector, who understand a bit of healthcare, are in the business, who believe in the vision with us. And we say, in these, if we divide the country into 4 zones, and typically 4 zones because of social, cultural issues in those territories, there's an opportunity to have more centers focused and grow this in every center. So I'll give an example. So for example, in every state, now while you can see on the screen, we've listed out which states typically in north, south, east, west. So between 5 to 6 states. Now, and northeast again is again a huge area, which probably because they are closely oriented with Calcutta region, so it would kind of by default come in the east. There's a huge opportunity because all these places, now we are not available in all the cities that are there. And in each state, there's an opportunity to open in the first year minimum 10 centers. Now, because these are primarily around the larger cities to start with first, and in some of these cities, you need multiple centers. And these can then further be expanded in year 2 and year 3 going forward. And we believe, for example, even if, like we said, we are offering 15 courses. So even if we train in every state, let's say 300 people per vertical. So for example, 300 people who know how to do X-ray, and 300 people who know how to do MRIs, and 300 people who are dental assistants, etc., across 10 programs, which is 3,000 people. And then if you are doing, 5 states, so it's a large number of students who need the training, who can get employable. Now it depends on the work that one does, at the grassroots level. The challenges which we were facing earlier was how do you communicate? Everyone doesn't know about healthcare, etc. Now, thanks to COVID, that has changed because everyone now understands healthcare. Everyone knows it's important. People are willing to spend the money to healthcare. I mean, you don't have choices. And so people see jobs in the future in healthcare. So we see a lot of interest. So, and it's supported with the brand that already exists. So we think there's an opportunity for us to, shift the focus instead of being central, but however the focus to be in each territory, and then the territory managing and going deeper into the states and into the cities across these 4 zones. So this is an exciting opportunity. I think more jobs will not only be in the bigger cities, but also open up in the smaller towns and cities. Next, please. So what we are basically saying, we are looking for master franchisees. We are happy to sign a 5-year contract because we think somebody who has to have the vision to build it over a slightly longer period of time. So once the master franchisee then is responsible exclusively for that area, so any and every inquiry or students, so they have to take the responsibility and to manage that. And then the master franchisee has an opportunity to create smaller centers strategically in that territory. Now so one is there are already some existing centers which they take over, so the learning also happens very quickly, and then there are opportunity to create new centers and go deeper into that territory. And so like this, the growth can be can be very quick because there's already existing model in that territory. So it's not that they have to first learn and then replicate it in other places. So the rollout so can be done. So we are looking for people who are serious, who can roll out at least 50 new centers in the next 5 years, because we believe that opportunity does exist. And commercially, we've got some norms in place. So we're saying that there's an initial franchisee fee, and then on every fee from the student, there's a revenue share. So we're saying a franchisee fee initially, depending on the territory, approximately around 3 crores. And from the student fee, there's a revenue share in which the master franchisee has gets a 15% of the revenue to be able to manage, to operate, manage, and includes his margin in that 15%. So we think there's a lot of money that can be made because once the centers are established and the throughput of the students keeps coming through, the initial investment on the infrastructure, once it's done, the fixed costs are taken care of, then every additional student just adds to the top line and the bottom line. So it's an exciting commercial opportunity as well. We are happy to share this in detail with those who are interested. But we are actually looking for like-minded partners who have a vision about this. There's an opportunity, for example, to create a new G4S, like the security companies have medics. So there's an opportunity to create something like that and deploy. So train them, and so there are many opportunities in the healthcare sector. But somebody will have to get into the detail of the healthcare sector, because every vertical within healthcare sector is different, and there are different ways of managing that, and it is technical because each vertical. So for example, a person who does your ECG does not do your CT scan. Somebody else cleans your teeth, somebody else will check your eyes. So each vertical is different, and one will have to get deeper into it. Next slide, please. So yes, so that was what I had to say. I'd be happy to answer any questions that everyone has. I hope, I try to keep it as concise as possible. So now I'd open to the house.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Shakti ji. Thank you, Vikas ji. I think very, very helpful, very good insight. And we thank you for being part of this webinars. These are special initiatives taken by Franchiseindia to bring opportunities which I think are positively impacted now. And your industry is certainly one of the most positively impacted. So there's a lot of demand being generated. We have now understood the importance of trained manpower, especially in the paramedical space. And I know this vision of Mr. Shakti was there for some years, but it was very hard for people to understand that why trained manpower is required, because a lot of even very sophisticated brands in healthcare don't really appreciate training value. And because of issues with clinics not having any obligation to have only certified paramedical people, so normally they would hire anybody and just train on the job and things of that.
Correct.
However, we see this typical compounders are available in the healthcare space, and most of them have no formal training. And in mature markets, there is a very strong formal training requirement. So that's why this industry always had demand, but never appreciated the effort of a training organizations or skill up organization and so on and so forth. So for our audience to understand a little more in depth of the business model, the business model is obviously around healthcare paramedical training. It is
correct.
one part of it, which we do small short-term vocational programs. Many categories are already there, and it will further continue to go, become even more specialized and so on and so forth. And it is now in healthcare and health safety. So both would become a very strong marketplaces. The second would be employment, which will be you can be a very large recruitment base for various organizations to use your services to train and recruit a large manpower. So that's another business vertical. And third, what you're saying is also an opportunity, especially for the masters, where they can become a service provider, which means that they can train and they can deploy that manpower on the roles of these healthcare companies, which can also become a significant business. I mean, that's a more G4 model where thousands of people can be on your roles, and you have arbitrage on each member, and you make that. So that makes a business model very, very scalable. So we call 4 things which are very important in franchising is how the business model is scalable. So there have no doubt that this model is very scalable. The second piece is also sustainability, because it's relatively low cost. You don't need to have too much of infrastructure required. It still can ride on a lot of existing infrastructure. Even a franchisee can use some existing infrastructure or house something in I think, and you can still do training. So it's a very sustainable business model in that sense. It also has a lot of what I call, you have a very strong credibility, which is a third point, because I have seen your full page ads and Bennett being your partner. And because of that, you have spent, I think, millions of dollars out there to build the brand equity. And there's a strong brand equity sitting there. So it also brings in a huge amount of credibility. And the fourth is the predictability in terms of how do we really see that where the demand patterns are there and how you are in there. So I would like you to highlight a little bit on that what do you do at the corporate to ensure that the students which get trained are now then also being taken in the industry, and how you capture the demand side. I mean, is there an analytic which you would have where you would say in this space, so many students would be required to be trained over the next 3 months. So there is a certain amount of predictability in the business model. So that's one question of mine. And the second question also is, we see there is a lot of specialized industries which are going to come in. Are you also creating some specialized programs like elder care, which is becoming a very strong piece, direct to home or healthcare, because a lot of people now like vaccination, they need to be done maybe at homes. Is there entrepreneurial models also coming out of your training capabilities, which I call micro entrepreneurship, which can then become a very interesting self-sustainable programs? I feel that while we always trained people to get into some form of job, which they get, but I have now, especially India has to gear up to create this micro entrepreneurship. So if you can become a vaccination professional and train yourself, and then you can be able to do maybe a vaccination or a healthcare at home or things like that, or you can start a small team and create your own, this small outfit to run and establish yourself in that thing. So these are two questions. One is predictability, and second, how does this business model of you can create and help micro entrepreneurship?
So
I think, sure.
I'll answer the question, just the second part first. You're talking about specialized programs. So VIVO has been, I think VIVO has created about 1,500 formal partnerships with the healthcare sector. So we have 1,500 employers who are working with us across the country and hiring people from us who are interacting with our training centers, and also giving us a lot of feedback on how we can improve, what sort of new content we can add. And that's how I think we've grown. We started with one program, the emergency medical technician for our ambulances. And now we've grown to about 16 programs we have for vocational training, which is what we're looking to franchise. But also we have about 70 other programs that we do in corporates and schools. And so we are an innovator of content as well. And I think as the demand the marketplace evolves, we are continuously evolving our training programs for the various target customers that we have. So from people who are looking for employment to people who are actually the hospitals and things like that. And even like we've trained police forces. We are also, we very quickly created a COVID-19 responder program to help the frontline workers in this time. So we've been known for evolving quickly and reacting to the marketplace. I think in terms of entrepreneurship, we've had many such opportunities. Many, each business model in healthcare has been, we've been sort of supporting them. So, for example, phlebotomists. So many people who created these, at home, what do you call, blood collection services, or other for testing services, diagnostic services at home. So many of our students are working there and are part of the gig economy, are per day or per sample collected, they're part of those ecosystems. Similarly, I think for now the new models that will evolve, will definitely be a part of those, and we'll be supporting companies like that. So we've been working with this. So companies come to us, this is what we need, or a group comes to us. If it's large enough and if there's a certain amount of volume there, we are very quick to create training programs, etc. I think besides the healthcare industry, we've also worked with like insurance companies, anybody who needs health aware, workforce. So I think that is going to change dramatically now, as Vikas alluded to it, corporate clinics. I mean, we need a much more health aware workforce in our corporates, in our schools, everywhere where, there are at-risk people. We will need people who are aware of what to do, what to be aware of, how to train and further train and educate people. So I think the demand for health aware people is going to increase a lot, and there'll be many, many opportunities for micro entrepreneurs and others in that. The other question you talked about was about placement, right?
That's right.
So one of the things that we would like to do a lot more of is work with, local employers, have a better sense of demand. And why we are looking at this master franchise model, regional master franchise model, is because for us as a corporate, it becomes difficult to go, drill down in, say, in Odisha, to see what's really happening in Odisha, what's the demand there. But if somebody is focused on a region or a zone, they will be much more aware and be able to tap into a lot more of the opportunities and be able to build up the ground level demand that is required, and therefore tailor and redirect their training efforts to this. So some of our centers are doing it who are in these regions by themselves, but I think if we can have our master franchise partners or regional partners, I think they will have a big role to play in that area, to be able to help us access the smaller, nursing homes and other, healthcare players who are setting up in their zone.
Very, very helpful. And I think a lot of specialized healthcare programs would start coming in, as Vikasji mentioned. Telemedicine itself needs 100,000 centers to be done in India, especially to bring in inclusive healthcare, because where the talent would not be able to reach, or doctors you cannot reach, I think it would be supported by, this, so to say, paramedical attendants who would do a lot of last mile fulfillment, health check, and so on and so forth, and the healthcare would be done virtually. So I think that's the next big thing which would answer to our, what I call, rural healthcare and so on and so forth. So there is a lot of new opportunities would emerge in the sector. Now I'd like to invite Sonia to start taking a lot of questions, because I think we have a big group and there are a lot of questions pouring in. So we would like to see, and Sonia, your group one.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Singh, and thank you, Mr. Kohli, for coming on this webinar today. And we've been seeing VIVO for many, many years, and this brand is a very revered name in the healthcare industry. As we all talked about, and we are seeing that in the presentation, we are at a tipping point of healthcare, and companies like you seem to have a very big responsibility these days of empowering the next generation to transform healthcare altogether, whereas the skilled staff positively affects and impacts the way the delivery and the patient experience happens. We all know the global healthcare systems are under big strain. We talked about it, the world knows, but this also comes with a lot of opportunities, so to say. And India being the biggest, one of the biggest sectors for healthcare in terms of both employment and revenue generator, I would say it becomes even a bigger imperative with the, I would say, the entire ecosystem. And the healthcare response to COVID-19 will still remain a priority for hospitals and the care providers, at least for the next 18 to 24 months of time. I also saw while we were going through this presentation, there's a big shortage we talked about in overall skilled healthcare professionals, and mainly three categories, which is paramedics, technicians, and healthcare alone. I think these three categories alone make to about 7 million of workers, which are still short, and this number is expected to go even bigger in the years to come. We saw some numbers in the presentations too. We talked about a lot of aspects, Mr. Singh and Mr. Kohli. I have a few questions, which I would want to answer before we take up from the audience. When we talk about, the industry, how it is growing in the opportunity, but I still feel there are very big gaps today. The overall healthcare and education training structure is going, this is a gap which is related to premature leaving of staff, and globally that's the problem. I would not say India, but globally there's a big problem. Staff would leave premature. Also, there's a lack of preparedness. Health workers would come and they would leave. There's also a big knowledge gap. And what I'm seeing, and there's a big debate which is going on, is also between the volume-based healthcare metrics and the value-based metrics. And what we are hearing, a lot of institutions globally have adopted a value-based care, which is leading to a more efficient allocation of healthcare resources, which has started to happening. And there are more problems, gaps which are coming in. I want to understand how, because you're a catalyst as far as this industry goes, how do you position yourself to take care of all these growing gaps and concerns, which in India, comparatively, these gaps are higher? And I would also like to maybe add a little later. I saw some questions which did come. Maybe I'll add that with my second question. But I'd like to have maybe your point of view on how, premature leaving, the knowledge gap and preparedness of the people who are working and then deployed further is being handled at VIVO Healthcare.
So I think I'll take that. So thanks, very relevant question. So I'll just give you a little history and then we can tell you. So when we started, so the traditional norm was somebody would go to a hospital, the doctors in the hospital would train that person, and after 2 years or so, he actually becomes skilled enough and employable. And then what they would see in the next 2-3 months, when he's actually learned the job, somebody else has poached him, right? So we've seen many industries, let's say, for example, in the recent past, same thing happened in retail sector as well. So there was shortage of people. So anybody who would have set up a new hospital, and that became the only norm. And that's when how we got deeper into skilling in healthcare, because what they said was, if we can get people at a base level, right, trained, and we understand what are those skills, and those skills you are able to map and the person is able to perform. Okay. So I'll give you an example. So every doctor has his own style of working. So if I was to train somebody, I would train him my way for the kind of work I'm doing. But that not necessarily the same procedure happens in another hospital or a larger setup. So they are looking for base skills, and then they need to adapt and fine tune those skills as per their working SOPs, their procedures and their protocols. So the 2-year gap, now if somebody was base trained, now this person could become productive for them in 3 weeks because he knew the basic skills. The doctors also knew what to expect from him. So today somebody comes with a certification, but you either may or may not have the skills. So unless you experience that when an incident happens, only then you realize how much the person knows. So for example, does he know how to check blood pressure? Okay, which are the equipment he knows how to check blood pressure, so on and so forth. So there is a matrix on which they are qualified, not only on their knowledge, but also on their skill, and they're evaluated on that. And now this matrix is being understood by the employer as well as the employee. So there is no mismatch in the expectation and what he can do and what are the gaps and what is the additional skill he needs to be trained, even if within the internal organization, the procedure is being tweaked. So there is a mapping. So that is why all our trainings are as per national occupational standards, where it is clearly defined as to what is the skill, and those skills they have been trained on and they have been evaluated on. So this is the way the whole thing is getting structured and is operating. So this is on this basis. Another interesting thing I'd like to add that's happening is, in healthcare, most, except for a few, most organizations are regional. So let's say a hospital chain which is in the south does not have prominence in the north, or somebody who's in the east does not have prominence in the west.
Right.
Now, as they are growing, they are looking at pan-India expansion. So they are also looking for a partner to supply them manpower pan-India, because as they are forecasting their growth. So let's say, give an example for a north. So let's say Dr. Lal Path Lab, which is predominantly in the north, now is expanding its blood collection centers to various activities. So they then have to go to every city and look for people and find people. So by default, VIVO Healthcare has become an option. So they reach out to us saying, look, in the next year, this is our expansion plan, and to support that, this is the kind of manpower we'll need. So can we have a discussion? Otherwise, it's a huge challenge for the HR to go to every state, every city. So that opens up an opportunity for us. And also they're able to discuss, the upskilling part or the gaps part in a comprehensive manner, which then can be implemented. So if you have to add a module to, a program that which we are already doing. So if we discuss with VIVO Healthcare across all our centers, that becomes possible. Otherwise, they have to engage with every center across. So this is, what is again an opportunity for us. Another opportunity is this demand for manpower only in India? Okay, like you yourself said, now it's a global mismatch. So if Indian doctors are being exported, Indian nurses, in fact, in the last few months as well, while everyone's locked down, nurses are being exported as we speak, right? So there's an opportunity for paramedics. Now, the good news is the technology is the same. So the CT scan machine that in India is the same as in Dubai or in Singapore. So if he's trained on that equipment here, and mostly these are back-end jobs where, you are working in the lab or you're working in the environment. So this opens up another whole opportunity. But I think for that, they need some experience. They need to gain the confidence. They're having worked for some time, and the communication skills need to be at par. And also in healthcare, you need to qualify for certifications of that host country. So those, I think that's the next level and the direction in which we are also headed.
Thank you, Vikas. I think that was very helpful. You did talk about training of equipment in your presentation, and you just mentioned that one again. There's one point which I want to pick, with the nurses being sent abroad and equipments being same. I feel this also brings in the need of how people are trained on the new technology, which means today, a lot of these healthcare workers have lack of knowledge of how to even read data points to even inform the patient care. And more than that, they're overwhelmed by the data point. There are many data points which can be related to. So is there a course, or, is that one of the important courses or element or a dimension that VIVO Healthcare takes into consideration when training these healthcare workers?
See, so our training is at 3 levels. So one is the theory component. The second is the skill component. So we have skill labs within our training centers. So in fact, some of our centers will have more equipment than a lot of the local nursing homes in that area, because so the objective is every equipment that the student is going to need to work on, he needs to know the equipment, know how to use it, know how to sterilize it, how to make the reports for it, how to communicate with the doctor on it, because the doctors have their formats, they have they're only in English, and in some hospitals now they are also on digital format, right? So, and then the third level is internship in a hospital. So once he's done his theory, he's done the skill lab, then when they go to a hospital, and so they are immediately much more productive than somebody who's just coming as an intern, having just studied theory. And then he comes and gives his exam and becomes certified. So that is the procedure. So that trains them completely to handle the latest equipment. And it is also our endeavor to tie up with technology companies so that we are abreast with all the technologies. right? So that becomes a part of the curriculum. So we are always aware of what is the latest technology, and so that the students are already exposed to it.
Great.
And there is a centralized exam where they have to go through and qualify and take a test where you give from a head office some kind of a certification which creates credibility in terms of their training capabilities through the franchisee.
Correct. So answer is yes, there is a certification process now. So they have weekly assessments, monthly assessments, and so on. So that is at an internal local level, which happens at the institute. And then the final evaluation after they're trained is also done, and we offer them a certification through NSDC, National Skill Development Corporation. So they actually get a Government of India certificate, which is valid across Pan India. And of course, by now VIVO certification also has enough credibility in the community, since all the hospitals are already engaging with us, know that a student has been trained at VIVO Healthcare. So they go back with a lot of self-confidence that their certification is valid.
And then just
final examination is conducted by external agency. So it's a independent assessment of their the skill that they've developed and what they've learned.
And just for our audience to know, how many students would have been already trained by VIVO in network, and how many would be working in the industry at this stage?
So I think about 15,000 students have graduated. So they are in the industry doing various jobs. So some of them, would have been working now for 5 years or so, and so on. So as they have progressed across different cities, because we started with Gurgaon, so older and a larger pool will be in the NCR region. And then as we've opened up in various cities, so that's the number of medics who are already in the system working. In fact, a lot of them are working for, the 108 ambulance services as well. So they're all working for large organized setups, because they're usually the first ones to come and hire, and they have organized requirements for manpower.
Actually, most of our graduates get multiple offers. And so you can expect one person getting two offers, three offers. The challenge in placement is from the student side, their willingness to move to take up jobs. Many of them at that level, have certain reasons why they don't want to move, family reasons. They don't want to work more than 2-3 kilometers from their home. So those kind of issues which are outside our framework. Our role is to make them employable. So we have about 75-80% placement that goes through us. But we believe that the other students, they take some time off, or they eventually can get employed very easily. When they choose to get employed, is something that they may not share with us. So our placement is about in the 75-80% range. But the good news is that the demand supply gap is such, and I think the credibility that VIVO's training has created is that there's always a job for somebody who wants a job, and that's the good news.
With a lot of unemployment, and India is seen like other part of the world, but India would see one of the largest issues in the unemployment side, and so skilling up people would play a even more important role. Another question I have is why it's training in a lot of industries which were large employers was never so important, because even if you got trained, if you get trained or you're not trained, you still get a job, and your job, the kind of salary packages you were getting were still very low. So students didn't see a value that why should I spend so much of time and get trained, and if I'm anyway going to get that kind of a job at that price. Like retail has a lot of retail programs, even Franchiseindia has been part of that. But we always found that when people, even doing after a course, they would still get about 12,000 rupees or 14,000 rupees to start from. And it didn't give incentive for somebody to go and train themselves and get that job. So is it changing? Do you think now people are appreciating and putting and paying more?
See, I think in the healthcare space and in I think other sectors as well, unfortunately in India, starting salaries tend to be very low. There's almost like a if you're an MBA, an engineering graduate, or a healthcare worker, typically the starting salaries would be in the sort of fall in the same range. What's I think different about the healthcare sector is, as opposed to other sectors, one is the technical skill involved. So if you don't know that skill, you can't get that job. So maybe in a retail or banking or other sectors, there's there are multiple people who could fill that role with a little bit of training. But in the healthcare sector, you have that you need that technical skill to be able to do the job. For example, operate a dialysis machine. If you don't know how to operate it, you're not qualified for that job. But I think the big thing is that if you have 1 or 2 years experience, right, then your salary levels really zoom up. So we've seen that anybody with up to 2 years experience can get 40 to 50% pay hikes in their thing, and that's the growth factor with experience is what I think is the real differentiator for employment in the healthcare sector, and which is what we try and tell everybody. Because you are, I mean, a paramedic with 2 years experience, I mean, this is of course a little bit of an outlier, can get $35,000 in Dubai, right? And it's not uncommon that people from India, paramedics, get hired. But if they don't have that experience, then of course it's a bigger. The starting point is even lower, is lower in Dubai. But so that's the kind of demand, global demand mismatch there is. And paramedics in Dubai can get up to $60,000. So that's like a pretty good, salary with after doing maybe, an advanced level program, which VIVO offers. So with 18 months of training, you are eligible to be in a $60,000 category. Of course, if you make it to Dubai. So that's what we are talking about,
Just to add to that, I think in healthcare now, legislation and certification will become mandatory. So it's not that no longer that anybody can just, start and, start working and stay employed. So as government, legislations, we are expecting them to get more stringent because lives are involved. And so those will also play an important role, because if you don't have the right certification, I don't think you'll be able to do that job anymore, which was not the case till now.
Which is very good. You should be the one who should file a PIL, and it should be in interest of people that they should see that who's
absolutely
giving them the injection or who's taking this. Certification has to be there.
In India, it's we are talking just Gurgaon and the major metro cities, Delhi, Bombay. It's, it's one story, but if you step outside, 20 kilometers outside these metros, and you see the condition and you see the type of people who are working in the space, there's a huge opportunity for them to get certified.
Absolutely. Sonia, your questions.
And also, bigger need, I was reading recently, one of the cities in Haryana recently, it is a part of Delhi NCR, recently got the first ICU in their city hospital. So that is the kind of plight we have in a place which is very close to Delhi NCR. So I'll take some questions from the audience. Anyone can answer between Shakti ji and Vikas ji. So we've talked about, because there's a lot of online education people are talking about. I was also reading recently, WHO also has started doing their online training programs for their health workers through immersive technology using AR and VR. So somebody wants to know, is there a program which we would have online to be imparted, because that's more exclusive, it has a bigger reach. What is your plan on online education?
So we are already, we've moved many of our courses online. I mean, by online instruction, similar to what we are doing here, where we are now training students through this platform. But one of the things that is going to be required in healthcare, as you said, to really, it's not just about doing an online course, right? Healthcare has a lot of touch and feel factor to it, handling equipment, handling patients. So it'll never be an entirely online program. And anybody who says that, I can become a certified technician just by doing something online is probably, is probably fooling themselves, So I think we are going to move and have already started moving a lot of our courses online. And once the sort of lockdown opens up further, we'll have some interaction, which will be at our centers, particularly to access our skill labs and to access the equipment and usage of the equipment, simulations and things like that. But yes, we are going to, so we will be in a hybrid type of model.
Blended hybrid model.
Blended hybrid model once things sort of come back to some sort of level of normalcy.
Great. So I have some questions, and I see those questions repeated basically on how the entire business model works, on the investment, on the margins, and what kind of operating expenses one would have, and how is the distribution of margin between the area and the unit franchisee under him, and also if little clarity on maybe the roles between the two, because I did read somewhere that he did not open his center. So do we just need a financial investor as an area franchisee, or we need somebody who opens up, uses that center as a training center for also subunits? So little clarity on that.
So basically we are looking for a master franchise who will develop a territory for us. So we've broken out the territories as described in the presentation, which we just went through. And the role of that master franchisee is to develop centers. They can choose to develop their own centers if they so wish, or they can choose to develop, sub-franchisees under that center. The idea is that we want to grow the network and make a larger footprint, have better inroads into the marketplace, even from a demand and supply point, like we just discussed. What types of training is required in your cities? What are the tie-ups we can do with the hospitals over there? So I would say it's helping us build the network infrastructure. So if you are going to open your own center, you keep your 90% of the revenues will go to your own center. If you are going to sub-franchise, then about 15% of the revenues will come to the master franchisee. The rest goes to the owner or the unit franchisee level. Typically, we are looking at about 3,000 square feet of space, which has 3 to 4 classrooms and 2 to 3 skill labs where the equipment is housed in that center. A unit level franchisee will make an investment of about 30 lakhs, which includes a franchise fee and the equipment, and the rest of it is like a typical classroom of setup. So that's basically how it works. We need about 120 odd students will help you break even during the year at a unit level. And typically we expect that about 200 students will enroll in each center per year. The mix of the classes varies, so the average course fees is about 40,000 rupees, but you could be on a higher level. If you're selling more of the higher level courses, you could go as high as 65,000-70,000 rupees. So that depends on the mix that you find for your market in that local area. So we want the master franchisee to help us play a role in all this, finding the right local partners to be sub-franchisees. If they are the guys to open up a few of their own centers in the key cities or these things, that would be ideal. And then of course we are eyes and ears for local market developments, both in terms of demand, supply, and other factors that are there. India is a big country, and we need to break it down to sub-zones for us to be able to better address the market needs in each place.
Right. So the role of the master franchisee would be obviously to bring these units under him, and there will also be a lot of local tie-ups with the hospitals and clinics, which needs to be done. So that comes as a responsibility with the unit, or the master franchisee takes over and he helps bring
ideally
these associations?
The unit does it, but the master franchisees oversees that there is an adequate development. In some cases there's a training requirement, or the unit level franchisee is not doing what it needs to be doing, then it needs to be. So the whole entire territory is going to be managed by the master franchisee in terms of these various aspects. So they will step into the shoes of whatever requirement there is, so it's basically that's
Correct.
it.
Okay, I just want to go back to my previous question because you said a master franchisee need not open a unit for himself. So how would the training be imparted? Would all that be centralized and taken care at the headquarters, or a master franchisee would also play some role on these
We will
trainings?
train the master franchisee and then eventually they will be doing the training. So we want them to be as independent as possible. What Vivo eventually will be playing a part in helping, in training them, educating them, giving them the course content, accreditation, right? And brand, of course, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of it, ideally, is over a period of time, the master franchisee takes over all the rest of the functions.
All right. And what kind of an investment outlay do you see for him?
So we are looking at about 3 crores investment outlay for you to take on the territory for a period of 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can have a renewable clause, based on certain performance criteria for them to continue if they meet all the performance criteria beyond 5 years as well.
Okay, and this 3 crores is some investment in the, it's just a franchise fee, the territory fee that he would give, or it also includes other components of the
So
investment?
it's a territory fee and it includes all the current franchisees also that are already operating under in that territory to be rolled up to them. So I think typically at least there are 6 or 7 units that will already roll up to them from day one.
Yeah, I saw about 3 to 5 average is what you have in each of these regions, and their revenues would be shared with the master franchisee the moment he gets on board.
The moment he gets on.
Great. I think that's relevant. And this is standard all across 3 crores, or it is based on the potential, like North is big and East comparatively would be?
We've put in a range of 2.5 to 3.5 crores. So depending on the territory, we'll discuss it with each one of them and close it.
Okay, great. And I'll see if I can pick some more questions. There's somebody who wants to know what is the scope for tier 2 and tier 3 for a business model like this? And are we also open to opening units? So master franchisee is one area we are focusing on. But if there's a unit inquiry which comes in, are we proactively looking at awarding a unit franchise?
We can open single units as well. But eventually we are finding the partners for our master franchise and they'll eventually roll up to a master franchise once that arrangement has been finalized.
Mm-hmm.
So you may sign up today directly with Vivo while we are, finding the master franchise, but eventually it'll be under a master franchise regional arrangement.
Okay, I have a question on the placement. While we did talk about that, and one of the gentlemen want to know, will the placement be responsibility with the unit, the master, or is it split over the 3 tiers, which is the parent, the master, and the unit?
Placement will be with the unit level. I mean, we of course will train them how to go about getting the placement done, how to build the relationship with the local hospitals, but it will be with the unit level. But of course, Vivo at a corporate level and the master franchisee will bring in any corporate level relationships with players like Apollo or Max.
Right.
Like we have a tie-up with, we have an MOU with Apollo hospitals for Pan India. So if it falls into that region, we will bring all those to help in the local level as well. So I mean, we are there to guide and to deal with the some of the larger relationships, but at a local level, I think employment is anyway done mostly locally. Even Apollo hospitals or a Max has a local hiring manager which you have to get in touch with for the local needs.
Correct. Okay, we have Shubhankar. Please tell some data on some financial stats like the investment for one unit. What kind of a revenue a unit can expect with all the units you've been running all across India? What kind of a revenue one can expect and what kind of margins overall a unit can make end of the month or annualized?
So typically at a unit level, there's a vast variation in each franchisee, but typically we expect that you'll do a minimum of about 50 to 60 lakhs in revenue. So we've had units go up as high as 2 crores per year those who are, and they're performing very well.
Mm-hmm.
And you can expect about 30% margin on this business if it's well run. Of course, the main challenge is to be able to get the students in. So if you don't do the business, if you don't get to 50-60 level of turnover, then you'll be suffering a loss. So I think I saw somewhere, so somebody had asked, what is the key challenge to this business? And I think that's the key challenge to the business is it's a marketing role. It's a role where you need to mobilize students and be able to get them on board. So that's what you have to think about is, how to, can you do that well? So,
Absolutely.
and other than that, I think most of the business model is completely provided by us. We help. We've had, franchisees who know nothing about this business, and we've, taught them sort of every step of the way, and they've been able to make a success. But I think success in the franchise business varies a lot, depends on how much you put in terms of effort, and uh, effort. And as I said, the key is the mobilizing of the students.
Correct. Okay. Now I have very specific questions which are coming from some cities. I have somebody from JK. If we have a tie-up with JK government, I will definitely think worth going ahead. Do you think it will add benefit to people if they already have tie-up with the government and they're similar businesses? And do you think they're more suitable for a unit or a master kind of a profile?
Tie up with government is a bit, of a vague term. You mean for government projects and contracts, I presume?
Correct.
So I think government projects are, a bit difficult depending on
What he
state.
talks about, I think these are government hospitals, and there's a lot of paramedical institutes across Jammu and Kashmir. And I think JK, there is a good scope of healthcare, but I need to know if having a tie-up with the government, then after they will allow us to work with government hospitals.
I'm not very sure about what the question is, but as I said, the key thing is if they're able to mobilize students and if they have a great tie-up with government hospitals and can place them well, then it's probably, they can evaluate it. Definitely, they should evaluate it.
So I think that's put in across different points a little vague. Okay, but then I have Akshay who wants to know, because the investment we talked about little heavy, as this is asset heavy business needing large real estate. He wants to know, does it need a large real estate and instruments apparatus for coaching alone? What you need for operations of unit is different, but would there be a bigger investment only if a master has to take care of coaching of subunits under him?
No, there's no big need of any real estate for the master franchisee. The master franchisee has to basically be able to build a network of franchisees, and if they want to build some of their own centers, they can do that. Per center, it's 3,000 square feet. I mean, most of our unit holders, they rent that facility out in a good location where they can get good footfall. Good visibility, typically like a good retail type of, center. Because any other point, retail wise, I don't think they need any more than that.
No, see, I think basically, in every state or city, there are pockets where students go for education. So the education hubs. So if you have real estate, you rented some space in that area, it works because, anybody who's looking for education is going there. That's one. Or even in some
visibility and good, even transport links. I mean, if you're in a metro station, we've like for an NCR, we've got most of our centers near metro station, and that's good enough location for them to, as long as they are accessible by the students these days. So it's not a very, not too much sort of.
And they can also use shared infrastructure that even.
See, so even some of the hospitals have extra space, or so that is also a great opportunity, because then the equipment, etc., that you need may not be as much as when you set up a standalone center.
In fact, we have many hospitals as our franchisees, or hospital owners who have taken franchisees from us in the past, because they have that synergy with them.
I have one question which I'm sure would also be relevant to others. Is there some kind of financing on the equipment where VIVO helps?
We help procure help you with the suppliers, but typically it's not. It's a typical center would spend maybe 2-3 lakhs up to 5 lakhs on the equipment. This is equipment for training, so it's not necessarily live equipment. Right, so we have training models, or even second-hand equipment in many cases that is used. So it's not necessarily that you're spending lakhs and lakhs of rupees on the equipment. So we've not found any opportunity to help finance it, but we can help with the suppliers and the people who are, where this equipment can be procured from and at a reasonable cost.
Sure. I have another question on marketing. Who would have the input and support? What would be the input and the support coming from the parent company, and maybe a subsequent master franchisee? And who takes care of the local marketing is a question which Mr. Shubhankar Agarwal has for all of us.
So VIVO has spent, as we pointed out, I think enormous amount in building the brand over the last 4 or 5 years. And we support all of our units through the creatives, branding, on digital media as well as on print and other media. The spend now that will be done by the at the unit level, and we expect that the master franchisee also will be can group together his
earnings and he can participate. So
participate in that.
Okay.
So that's going to be part of the regional growth strategy. VIVO has very good relationships with some of the media companies, and we can always help put together. So we have a team that does only branding and marketing, so they can package these things very well so that it becomes a very effective process. Plus all the creatives and all that we do ourselves and can help the unit. So you don't need to go out and get creative agencies and things like that to do that. So in that sense, we support them completely.
Sure. And also for all viewers, the marketing which happens at the national level is what the brand would eventually take care of. And that is the norm globally. And something which is local marketing is a responsibility with the franchisee, and where your master can also chip in some revenue to make it maybe a bigger piece. And today we are doing a lot of digital marketing, which is anyways not as expensive as the print that we have been doing last many years. So Shakti ji and Vikas, if you want to take up, I think we have kind of covered up most of the questions. I see repetitive questions which have come out in a lot of our discussions. If there's anything that you think we have missed and you want to take it up, let me know. But pretty much we have kind of covered almost all the questions.
So we can have a last word from both of you and Sonia in terms of what do you think the opportunity and who's the right kind of partner? Are you doing something special because of this whole COVID thing going on? Because liquidity for everybody is at this stage a little bit blocked. And obviously the Franchiseindia would compile all the leads and reach out to you and try to organize a lot of one-on-one discussions. Sure. But final word for all of you, please.
No, I think this is we are standing at a very unique opportunity because of this COVID crisis, and it's I think out there for us to really I would not use the word take advantage of, but really to help participate in and to help build I think this infrastructure that is very sorely needed. So not only is this I would say a business opportunity, but I think it's a opportunity to participate in helping our society, both from jobs point of view as well as building our healthcare infrastructure. So it's got an element of a social mission also associated with it, and the master franchisee, yes, it requires some investment upfront, but I think it can be paid back very quickly. If you're looking at a slightly horizon beyond the next few months, it's something which is got a large potential, not only from just the running of the training centers, but I think we've alluded to the potential to create several revenue streams beyond this. So we've got, like we've talked about, the placement opportunities, staffing, creating the G4S type of models. If somebody wants to become a staffing to hospitals in their region, they'll have the manpower ability to take on those kind of opportunities and businesses as well. It's also, I mean, healthcare companies are welcome to do it. Entrepreneurs are welcome to do it. But yes, it'll require, for you to, for the next 4-5 years to be completely involved in building this out. So I think the commitment is required. And I think it should be a good proposition for anybody who wants to enter the healthcare space in a very, I think, low risk manner. I think what Vivo's learnings are over the last 10, 11 years, I think come to bear, very quickly to anybody who joins us at this stage.
Very helpful.
I think, I'd like to compare it like when demonetization happened and a lot of digital finance companies were able to benefit from it. I think there's a similar rare opportunity we are seeing in healthcare. And I think Vivo has the potential to benefit in a kind of a similar fashion. So what we see, 2-3 things in the future is, one is legislation will definitely come in. The most disruptive technologies will continue to come into healthcare. And all of this will need change and learning and relearning in healthcare. And since these will be critical skills, certification will become even more important. So that will only add to, people. So hence we need to look and work with people who are open to change very quickly, and to be able to, see new opportunities and quickly act on them, and then create a new quick supply chain around it. So I think that will be exciting times. And this is where the next, I think, 5 years, and if we can do it right in India and start exporting these people, there's already huge demand for caregivers in Japan and in Canada and so on. So not only the Middle East. So there's opportunity to then, once you have the base in place, and then to again take it to the next level and the next level, every 2 years. So I think that's the mindset we need to align with.
Final word from you, Sonia.
Okay. Thank you, Vikasji and Shakti. I'm just hearing Vikasji, and we heard about this disruptive technology. Even for India, telehealth, something which is very new. It's now looks like coming in the mainstream. I recently was reading Australia. There's a hospital which is Mercy Hospital. They've also invented this ICU, which is virtual ICU, where they intubate a nurse at home. So while India is yet to see, a lot of that is happening across the globe. I feel, when we talk about disruption, technology plays a very important role. And something from my own experience, my own personal experience, I feel Indian healthcare, we've seen that in many industries. I'm sure insurance, we have interoperable systems where, the data is available seamlessly all across. But the biggest barrier which technology in India will is that we need to have a lot of improvement in the interoperability of the systems and platforms. And that is what maybe we need credible catalyst and platforms, or maybe companies like you to lead. We have seen that happening in telecom. We have seen that happening in insurance. We are seeing that happening in financial companies like Paytm and the others. But I feel healthcare is one industry where this is needed the most. And I feel this is the time where we need to take it up to make it more smooth and seamless for the entire community. Catalysts like you, maybe consumers and people like us, and maybe the entire ecosystem of the healthcare as an industry. Thank you so much, Shakti and Vikasji, for taking it up. And we wish VIVO Healthcare a very best of luck for the years to come. And we see a huge opportunity in this sector. And we like to partner and take this journey with you ahead. Thank you so much.
So thank you
very much.
Thank you, Thank you, Sonia. And thank you all the attendees who have come today, and look forward to hearing and speaking to all of you.
Look forward. And I think it's also going to be, while you started as an education platform, but also it will empower a lot of micro entrepreneurship.
Absolutely.
Is a need, and also a lot of specialization as we go along in this sector. So you are at the right space. You probably started even ahead of times, but now the time is now. So I think it would be a time for you or organization to be valued and respected for what you've created. So Archana, final thank you note from your side, please.
Sure. Thank you so much, Bharat sir. We really appreciate time taken by each one of you, our respected panelists, Gaurav sir, Sonia ma'am, Shakti sir, Vikas sir, for taking out time and giving us this insight about your brand. We really appreciate our participants, our friends who have joined us from all over India. We got few queries from each one of you, our panelists, as well as Vikas and Shakti should answer many of them. For rest, we'll definitely come back to you through your emailers or through your email ID. You can also contact us on our website, or I'm just putting the information through where you can get more information. So that's the information on your chat tool. You can either contact me or my colleague Kanika. I've shared your number for them. Thank you so much from our side. Look forward to have a great session tomorrow. That's the information put in by my colleague Dheeraj. Tomorrow we are doing webinar on Procter and Gamble, and that's the link in your chat tool. You can register yourself and you can enjoy wonderfully session tomorrow. Take good care of yourself and your family. Thank you. Best wishes.